In this video we are going to see how you can create Windows desktop applications. For example, the calculator is a Windows desktop application, and for example Photoshop is a desktop application, and also this Visual Studio. But we will create a bit simpler application. They are called desktop applications, but Microsoft also uses the term forms. So basically this one window is called form. It was previously called Windows, so Windows and forms are pretty much the same thing. So here we have our example program that we are going to create. So I start it, and so what's going to happen? So we have a button that shows and hides a picture. Then we have two text fields. If I type here something and click this, the text here will be copied here. And the last part is that pretty much the same thing, but with this I show how you can handle integer and doubles, because this is a text field, like a string field. So what we have to do to read text field, convert the value to integer and make calculation, and then put it back to text field. So there are a few steps to see. So this just adds then. Okay, I start with a blank project. I first save this just in case. My Visual Studio installation sometimes crashes when I'm doing these Windows Forms applications, so I constantly save the project. Anyways, I start. So I go File, New Project, and then there are many possibilities. I don't, for example, remember correctly what the project type is, or if I don't remember, now I remember because I just did it. I choose desktop here, maybe language C#, platform Windows, and then I can narrow the possibilities. And we are doing Windows Forms app, so I choose that one. And then I type the name, and the other stuff are pretty much as they are. So then create. So this is the basic view. It may be so that you don't have all these visible, so you may see the whole thing like this. So we need to take properties here, and sometimes it's good also pick this Solution Explorer, and then we need tools, toolbar. Wait a minute, where is this? It's not called tools, it's toolbox. So here, and by default it's like this, and I usually do that. I open this and then I click this, and it will be like placed here forever. If I want to go back, I just tap it again. So this, because we need these all the time when we are doing. So let's start with the button that shows and hides the picture. I bring first the picture here. These are called controls, like user interface elements. There are buttons, text box, and for example now I'm going to get a picture box somewhere here. Double click maybe, or do I have to drag it? Yeah, maybe the dragging is more the better way. So like this, and I set the width and height like this. So now if I have this selected, I have properties of this picture box available here. And if I, for example, make a button and click the button, so the properties of the button are visible here. But first the picture box. Here the properties are, you can like list them in different ways. I tend to use this alphabetical order. It's easier for me, but this is more like they are categorized somehow, but I use this. So first of all, I change the name of the picture box. So it's up here. If I drag another picture box, it's going to be a picture box 2 and so on. So now if I just have one, I take this away. But for example, if I have more than 1, 2, 3, if it's okay, and maybe even I could say like picture box, if I'm using this as an alert image, I could type this here. So make sure the naming is good when using these controls. So how I can pick the image, I go here and click here, and then I must import an image. I take this one and then just OK. And now it's here. And the picture is larger than the box, so I have to adjust the size. So here should be somewhere image, no, it's size mode. So you can just try these out, but I know zoom is what I want. So it won't stretch the image because it's just awful, but I use this zoom, so then it's okay. Alright. Then the button, I select it and change the name. So this button is button and I name it show hide. So when I have more buttons, I know what's the function of this button just by checking the name. So what is reading here, it's a different place. I go down, here's a text, so I just type show hide. This is for information for user. Okay, here we are. So we can start coding. The first thing you may do is you just click or double click here. So I double clicked the button. This automatically creates a thing called event handler. Event handler is a small function, or more, maybe the better word is method, that where we code what happens when we click the button. So if we look at here, there's click. You can have different interactions or events. They are called events. For example, click is event. If I drag the mouse over the button, then there's a drag event. So something is happening. And what is happening, we code here to this event handler. So I could just first hide the picture box. So I start typing picture, and here's my picture box. And then I said that hide, just like this. And then the picture box will hide. I go back to this design view, here were the codes. And then I save everything and click start. So now if I click here, the picture box is hidden. Okay. So what if you by accident click double click this image? and then you notice, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to create an event handler for picture box. I don't need it. And then you just delete these codes like this. It will create an error. So you will see this kind of error message. It's pretty easy to correct. So you have an error list, and you just double click this error message, and you have to delete this line. This line is called like a listener. Listener is a method that basically is listening that if the click is happening, like are you clicking me, are you clicking me, it's like constantly listening if the clicking is happening. But because we deleted the event handler, there's still the listener that is listening and trying to find the event handler what we deleted, and we have an error. So I just delete this and everything is okay now. Okay, so few more logic to this button. So I double click and I come back to this script. I don't have to like double click, I just can open this tab and I find this. But yeah, I try to detect that if the picture box is visible, then I hide it. So if picture box is visible, you can find different properties, the width, there are so much stuff, but I know there's a visible here. Is it visible? This basically means that it's true. The picture box is visible, so it's true. If it's not visible, it's false. It's not visible now. So I am detecting, is the picture box visible? So if it is, then I hide, and if it's not, now it's like hidden, and then I show it like this. Let's test the app. Save it and test it. Yeah, it works. Okay, so even the form itself, the window, can have events. So for example, when the Windows is opened or closed, they are events for Windows. So I double click this, and it will create me a event handler that happens when this window is loaded. So here I can like put some default values. For example, hide the picture box. So when I run the program, the picture box is hide by default. So now this works as needed. And of course this form has also properties, and I could just name it a bit differently. I name it like Windows Forms example, like this. You can set the background color and all kinds of stuff. So now I make the buttons, the text boxes, that in the first text box I will write something, then I have a button that copies the text from the first text box and passes it to the second text box. So first the controls, user interface elements, text box here. I place the second one, then go up, here's the button, I place it to the middle. So this like the text box, I just type it first, it's not bad, and this is text box final. So I'm writing here, and then when I click this button, the text what is typed here will be copied here. So then I name this button copy text, and then I want to set then what the user sees, so this is also copy text. Okay. So I again double click this button to create an event handler for it, like this, and then I want to set the text of a final text field, text box. So this is the text. This text is also like a property, like a width, or is it visible? The text is what's inside, what's like written in the text box. So text box final text. So I place the text box first, the text. So what's the text here? I just place here. This is quite simple. Let's test it. So now I'll write something, hi, and click this. So it reads whatever is here and then copies it here. You can also like set the default values for this text box here. For example, that it ain't possible to edit the text of this text box. So I set false here. I think it's that one. Let's run it. So now I can't like write anything here, but of course I can insert text if I program the text to appear here, so it's possible. Okay, so then the last part. First the text box here, and then the button here. So the idea was that I write a number here, and then if I click this button, I add 10 to the number here. So first the name of the button, add 10, and then the text, add 10, like this. And the text box name is like, for example, text box number. Okay, so this is a bit more complicated because we want to read the text here, and we need to use it as a number. So we need to do some stuff. It's basically pretty much the same way as we deal the situation in console program. When we read text from the console and we try to place it or assign it to the integer variable. So let's go here. I created an event handler for this button. So now I want to take the number, or create a number variable, and I say that the value of the number is coming from the text box, number, and text. And as you can see, it gives me an error because I'm trying to force string typed value to integer. So this is just the way it was with the console applications, console app. So int pass, and then it's okay. So now I can make a new variable. Sum is number plus 10, and I try to place this value, integer sum value, to the text box. So text box number text equals number. But now I have a pretty much the same situation. So now I have an integer typed value and I'm trying to force it to go to the string typed text box. So what I need to do here is I say number and to string. This means that I'm converting this number to string. So now it's okay. So if I type 100 and click add 10. Okay, sorry, there's a error, so this should be not the number, it's sum. The sum I'm trying to place to the text box, not the number. Again. And then add 10 and yeah, it goes well. Okay, last thing is that because all these are basically functions, so if we have variables here, they are only visible in this function, in this event handler function. So if I try to use this number, for example, here, it's not visible, of course, and I can create a number here also, because this is the variable that is only visible here. So I can have these variables like the same name in different functions. But what if I want to declare a variable that I can use here and here, or even here? So a variable that is visible here and here. So then I go up and under this public class I declared a variable here, for example int, for example, what I'm not using, this is more like a global number, and let's assign 10 to it. So this is visible now everywhere. So if I want to use it here, global number, I can use it. It's visible here and it's also visible here. If I want to use it somehow, I'm not doing anything with the variable, but the idea is that if I want to have or I need a variable that is visible in every method, every function, I need to declare it here. But if I have a variable that is only is declared inside a function, inside event handler, it's only visible here. Okay, this is pretty much what you need to do or start to create something. You can find so many different controls or user interface elements here. What you can do, label is like just a text here. You can label what this part of the program is doing, for example. You can have different menus placed here. Radio buttons. You can have a text area or text field. Let's try it. Text. Yeah, text box and rich text box. Is it like? Yeah, it's like a big, if you, for example, if you're creating message. But it doesn't matter what the control is. They all have the same properties like with, name, and then depending what kind of control it is, like for example here you can load a picture, in text box you can write text, label is pretty much just a label, but for example the radio button, it can be like selected or not selected. Okay, have fun with Windows Forms apps.